Let's find the equation of the line through these 2 points, -3, -4, and 2, 11. Slope-intercept form of the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. We don't yet know the slope, so we need to figure that out, and neither of these points is the y-intercept, so we're going to have to figure that out too. First, let's find the slope. Slope is change in y over change in x. Y goes from -4 to 11. That's an increase of 15. X goes from -3 to +2, which is an increase of 5. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. What this is telling us about the line, of course, is that every time x gets 1 bigger, y gets 3 bigger. Since we now know the slope, we can write y equals 3x plus b. We know the slope is 3. We don't yet know the y-intercept. In order to figure out the y-intercept, we're going to use one or the other of these points. And it doesn't matter which. I'll choose 2, 11. What we're going to do is we're going to substitute 2 and 11 in to x and y. So we're going to replace y with 11. And we're going to replace x with 2. Simplifying 3 times 2. Now we need to solve that equation. So we'll subtract 6 from both sides. I imagine many of you are saying it's 5. Yes, it is. So we now know that the y-intercept is 5. So the equation of this line is y equals 3x plus 5. We can verify that that's the correct equation by taking a look at the graph of this line on Desmos. The line goes through the 2 points, so we know we have the correct line. Now we know that y equals 3x plus 5 is the right line, but how could we be sure that it was the right line if we weren't allowed to use technology like Desmos? Here's how. Take your equation, y equals 3x plus 5, and check it with both points. You have to use both because it might go through one point and not go through the other if you've made a mistake. So we substitute -3, -4 into our equation, and we verify that we get a true statement. Repeat that process with the other point. Since both are true statements, we know that both of these points are on this line. I'd like to talk about one more thing about the line y equals 3x plus 5. Earlier in the video, you might recall that I mentioned it didn't matter which point we picked to figure out the y-intercept, and I decided to use 2, 11, and that gave us that the y-intercept was 5. Let me show you that it really, truly doesn't matter. So let's go back to the point where we knew that the slope was 3, but we hadn't yet figured out the y-intercept was 5. So y equals 3x plus b. This time, instead of using 2, 11, let's use -3, -4. So just as we did before, we'll replace y with -4, and we'll replace x with -3. Simplifying, add 9 to both sides, and sure enough, we get 5. So either way, either point, you're still going to wind up with the same y-intercept because it's the same line. Why is this worth talking about? Because when you go to do this yourself, you don't have to give any worry to which point to pick. Pick whichever point you want. When I did it the first time, I chose 2 comma 11 because it didn't have any negatives in it, so I was more confident that I would not make any small, silly errors.